Mr. Harloff.
Yes, sir.
Round one is comedy. Who played love interest Carla Purdy in 1996's The Nutty Professor?
Jada Pinkett Smith.
That is correct.
Correct for 1 point. And everyone's like, "Are you pissed off?
I think it's funny.
What do you think?
It was hysterical.
Are you
was
mad?
hilarious.
Are you mad at the red letter media? No, I love those guys. Like when, they're all grouchy fucks. That's what makes them so fun. They're grouchy. They hate everything. Yeah. But I don't listen a lot of times to it. And I'm also a 7-year-old. That's why my wife today gets accepted to art school. Right? It's art school. She went back. Exactly. Like, proud thing. I go, I'm off to tell dick jokes.
This is it. This is the big one. Superman. Everybody is anticipating this trailer.
There was never a plan.
Yeah.
There was not a plan.
And for my subscribers who are wondering, well, why isn't Jeff just breaking this in the newsletter? I owed Kristian one. And he's the guy that you talk to about Star Wars if you've got some good juice. And I got some good juice this weekend. So,
Wow. Oh, get the f*** out of here. Wow.
This is an out-of-the-theater reaction to Deadpool and Wolverine Dune Part 2.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Who played Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter in the 1985 film Commando?
I've never seen Commando.
Oh, is that so? Guess someone, an actress in the 80s. You gotta stop spoon feeding Katie this. I mean,
Alyssa Milano.
that is correct.
I guess you can call this movie week. We have an interview with Kristian Harloff. If you have been on film Twitter or especially film YouTube or know anything about movie YouTube channels, this guy has been around for so long. He's somebody that I've been watching since I was in the early high school days. I mean, back when he was doing the schmo stuff. And we do talk all about that. But yeah, a lot of questions today about the current slate of summer movies, the movie industry as a whole, film fandom. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's an interesting discussion. Obviously, look, we do a lot of baseball stuff, but my whole thing with this show is I want to interview people that I find interesting, and I want to interview people that I feel like I can make a solid conversation with. And I'm really looking forward to this. I think that one thing that I haven't tapped into quite yet with this show is the fact that, I grew up on YouTube watching so many different content creators who inspired me. And I think given the opportunity to talk to those guys is a really special thing. And to have that chance with Kristian today is really cool. And hey, we got Superman around the corner, we got Fantastic Four around the corner. We ask about Batman, Avengers, Star Wars. We cover a lot of bases in 30 minutes. So I'm looking forward to you guys listening to that. Before we start the show though and get to the interview, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. That way we can get those watch hours up. If you want us in audio form, you can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify and on Twitter at Castellani 2014. And, of course, CastellaniContent.com. That is our safe haven, our one-stop shop for everything that Austin and I create. Go there. That's getting updated every single day. So go ahead and check that out. I would be much appreciated. Yep, let's just jump right into it. Got a lot of questions and a lot of things to offer to Mr. Kristian Harloff. Let's get to it. Kristian Harloff joining the program today to talk a little bit of summer movie news and a little bit of past history. This is not, it's the first time we've met, but it's not the first time we've been in a YouTube video together. And I'm going to take you, I'm going to take you back. Do you remember the channel Pretty Much It with Eric Striffler? Yeah. In 2012, so I was 17, I'm 30 now. He did a 12 Days of Christmas countdown song with it was you guys. It was me. I think Stuckman might have been involved in that, but it was a plethora of YouTube critics at the time, and I couldn't believe I was a part of it. But this is our first time meeting, so nice officially saying hi to you. How you doing, Kristian?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, I love those guys. Eric's a very, very. He was ahead of his time. He's a really good dude. I like all those guys.
Still grinding too, living in a van, or they're traveling from across the country. It's pretty neat. And I gotta start with that because that is the era of YouTube that I identify so much as kind of that like 07 to like 2014 film critic era, and you guys were such a huge part of it. And what you've done has evolved to such a crazy extent. But do you ever kind of miss the glory days of Schmoes, so to speak?
I don't know if miss is the right word, because it's like, I'm proud of more so than a lot of things, because I think, you've got to always pivot and there's a lot of moments that I hold very dear to that crew. I mean, I still talk to Mark Ellis. I mean, literally just talked to him earlier this morning. So, it's like there's a lot of great things that happen, but I think because of some of the things that do happen, you go, oh, now I can do that here. And because of what I learned there, I can now do here. So there's a lot of really special moments back then that I love, but no, it's not a matter of miss. It's a matter of just more proud of.
Yeah, it was the beginning of the evolution, so to speak, I feel like. And I brought up a second ago, but I think that era, not just for people like me who grew up on film, but I think that for film criticism was very important. Because like when I was growing up and when I was young, the idea of like being a movie critic was, I thought of Siskel and Ebert, or I guess at the time Ebert and Robert, and there was this idea of like, it was a very exclusive club, and you needed to be a credentialed newspaper person, or you need to be somebody that was on TV. And then, you guys and Stuckman and Jeremy Johns came along with this whole idea of like, if you're passionate, you can not only, put this on video, but you can monetize it too. Right. Do you feel like that era was kind of vital to the way that film criticism has grown in the modern age?
Yeah, sure. Because I think that I remember it was, I tell this story often, but like when we started, because Mark Ellis and I, when we started doing, we originally started on kind of the old Current TV, which was a website that like Al Gore started.
Yeah.
And then that just a friend of mine had said, listen, who I did stand-up comedy with. She's like, we're doing this thing where we have these flip cams, and we're just getting a bunch of people to review television pilots and funny people. We're going to do a whole bunch of people, and would you want to do it? So I was like, yeah. So I called Ellis, who I knew from the Comedy Store, and we did some. We're not on screen together, and we did some stuff, and then they liked our stuff kind of the most, and then we started doing edited pieces of still separately on camera. Like I would do mine from my flip phone, he would do his. They pieced it together, and then I remember pitching it to both her and him. I was like, why don't we just sit together and do this together? And Mark being the classic stand-up comedian that he is, he's like, I don't want to do two people on a stage. That's not what I do. And I was like, and then we were like, let's sit down and try this. And we realized really quick. Then to his credit, he was like, yeah, this is how we need to do this. We sat down, we bounced off of each other. We started to do that, and we wanted to always approach it like just the same way that if I was going to see a movie with you, afterwards we talk about it outside. I was like, you don't really get that. You don't really see that. It's always like you said, you always feel like you're kind of like the outside, and you don't feel like you belong with the people who are telling you what you should like and what you shouldn't like, and they're talking in a certain way that you almost feel like, oh my God, these people are they smarter than me? Are they not smarter than me? Are they doing? I don't know, but I just want to talk about movies. And that was kind of like the basis of what we started to do when we did the reviews. And after we left Current TV, we went to YouTube. And at the time, I mean, Chris Tuckman and Jeremy Johns weren't even doing reviews when we started. It was they're now double toasted, but they were spill.com.
I grew up on Spill, so yeah, I'm partial to Spill, yeah.
Yeah, and Grace Randolph was still doing it. So that was, they were around before us, and then we came in. There were maybe 4 channels that were doing movie related content, and I can't even tell you, Chris, how many times I told people that this is what I was doing. Like, well, why would you do that? You can't make that a career. You can't do the people. And it was before the internet. You couldn't, like, as you said before, you're like, and you found out a way to monetize it. We weren't when we were starting, because it's not like today when you can do that. So it was a grind, but it was nice to see the evolution of it. But I wish I knew some of the things I know now then,
Yeah, of course. And I think it was one of those things that with the internet becoming what it was becoming, I think it was bubbling up to the surface for a while, because it started with blogs like Ain't It Cool News, I think was such a huge influence. I think just generally speaking, the presence of Kevin Smith on the internet kind of changed a lot with him, being, leading the charge, and just the way he wrote his movies, the pop culture references. And then the next kind of step was video reviews. I love the fact that your story kind of starts with stand-up comedy, because I think that stand-up, people who started as stand-ups this is an easier transition to the world of the internet, because stand-up comedy, so much of it, even if you're good, is you got to eat your shit sometimes. Like you're gonna have bad sets. You got to work stuff out. Do you feel, and then, the internet, obviously not always the most positive place. Do you feel like that time doing stand-up, and maybe you could speak for Mark here as well, kind of prepped you for what the world of the internet had in store?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, in the fact that I think it's a more being like, I think that camera ready, and also understanding that you're kind of on your own in your own island when you're doing stand-up, right? So you don't really, again, Ellis and I had the benefit of bouncing back and forth with each other, whether we were on the live show, whatever it was. So we had that bit of a cushion that you don't really have in stand-up. But in stand-up, if you do get a heckler, or you do something, you can interact, you can win that heckler over.
Yeah,
it's very hard to win someone over via text if they just are looking to hate your ass. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there's nothing you can say to them, because it's not that same. You and I can have a conversation here today, and we can start cracking some jokes, and we can do things, we can make each other laugh, and whatever it might be, and we'll have it. We'll be just, it'll be, you feel that back and forth. Or the same thing, you could say something, I could say something that offends you, and well, wait a minute, why did that offend you? And then we have a conversation about it. The internet, you got a couple characters to say it, and if I feel like dropping my phone, I don't give a shit what you say. I'm leaving. I'm going to go do something else, and you're on the other end, fuming. And it took a while to learn that. It took it's like, and it's like it's a different animal completely than stand up. But I think that the more so the performance on screen, talking, and crafting things the way that we did craft conversation on stage is similar in that way.
Yeah. And I think that, again, it was kind of this trial run, because it sounds weird to say, but just in the lane of how people critique films and actors,
right?
I do think that it's gotten a little better, because I think that in the Wild West days of the internet, like that, which I consider, and we'll talk about them in a minute, but like the Star Wars prequels era, where it was just people, like, it was pre-Twitter, but you had message boards, and people just, it was before we kind of had this idea of like, yeah, there's actually a person playing that role, and maybe we shouldn't attack like the 9-year-old who's not at fault for playing Anakin Skywalker type of stuff.
Right.
Do you feel like maybe there has been some, I mean, it's the internet, so it's to a certain, but some leveling out in regards to like that kind of invasion of privacy?
No, I think
you don't think so at all, really?
I think it's getting worse, because there's more platforms to do it now. There's more platforms, there's more voices, there's more, there's a way. I always say this, and I say this a million times over. Think of the best person in the world that you've ever met, that today. That person has access to the internet. Now think of the worst person you've ever met in your life. That person has access to the internet. So it's like we all take our ideals and thoughts and what we want people to like. Listen, like you said, that's a little kid.
Yeah,
leave a little kid alone, right?
Yeah.
There's still people who don't see them as people. They see them as images and other things, and they just feel like this is what I want to say, and they don't have thoughts of how that really is going to affect someone else's life. And there's just more ways to do that now. So no, I don't think it's gotten better. I actually think it's gotten significantly worse.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the platform. I just think like if they were, and this is a very specific area, but like if they remade the Star Wars prequels today, I don't know if that. I think the criticism, let me put it this way, would be divvied up in a much different way as opposed to it being attacked towards that particular kid. I feel like it would be much more lobbed at Lucas or the writing or something like that.
Sure, I mean, yes, I think so. But I mean, even look at like the recent casting of, say, like when Percy Jackson.
Yeah.
When I think or even How to Train Your Dragon. It's like or Little Mermaid. There's always going to be there's this back and forth that's just going on right now. And it's, unfortunately, I think movies and the movie space and everything too has been caught in this political wave more so than ever, because there's always the argument that movies have always been political. Pop culture has always been political. And it's true. I mean, anything has been driven by some political events. I mean, Star Wars, the originals, of course. But the discussion around it has almost been like a stance on, well, if you like this movie, then you voted for that person. If you know what I mean? That's what it's become now, and it's unfortunate, but it has turned into that.
Yeah, and I guess the next litmus test will be how people react, because I think this is going to be the next big thing in the internet that people hate each other over, is the next Harry Potter adaptation. I like and I'm not, and that's not me saying I think it's going to stink. That's not me saying I think it's going to be. I just it's a perfect storm of nostalgia that people have to the original trilogy, new adaptations, some differences in cast decisions. I can already see that happening. One moment that always stands out to me, I remember, and this was back in the Schmoes days. You guys interviewed Mark Hamill, and I remember it was one of those things where you guys were noticeably a little bit nervous. And when it ended, I just remember you and Mark kind of looking at each other, like giving a big high five.
Yeah.
To this day, is that the most? I'm not going to say. Yeah, I will say. Is that the most nervous you've been for an interview, or has there been one that's topped it since?
I don't think I was necessarily. That was more excited. Then there was nervous energy in there, but it wasn't like a matter of like, so no, because also it was set up through Scott Mantz, and I had also heard great things about Mark Hamill. I also knew his son, and he that's not how we got the interview, but we got it through Scott Mantz at that time. But it was also he was aware of the show from what I had heard, so it was a little easier kind of going in there. No, I would say, look, Harrison Ford was, when I walked in to interview him, it was one of those things like, oh, this is going to be an interesting thing, because you hear so many different things about him. He was a super, super sweet guy. But as far as, it wasn't an interview, but I think I was just talking about this yesterday, actually. Because I guess because we were doing it so long that when it came to interviews, you just kind of treat it like you do look at it. It's easier said than done, but you look at it like these are just people who are just, this is their career. They're talking about things, and you open up to them, and then you just have a conversation with them, and they open up, and it makes it easier where you don't treat them like anything else. The only time I really kind of felt myself like almost looking at myself going, oh, you can actually speak, is when I met Julia Roberts. It was the only time.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's one of those, we have a ton of athletes on this show, and like obviously the guy, I'm a huge Detroit Tiger fan. So like Tarek Skubal's the best pitcher in the world. Yeah. We had him on twice. That's and great. It was one of those things where once you have to kind of remove the sheen, because once you do that, the commonality is we're two 20-somethings that really like baseball. And it's like that when you ask actors, guys are get endeared to like the knowledge that you have about their characters, their roles. Want to ask about a few upcoming movies here. I'm obviously, and I know you are as well, super excited for James Gunn's Superman. And my whole thing about it is similar to the way I viewed the first Iron Man when it came out, I don't need to look at it and say, start of this next great universe. Right. I just want a really good Superman movie. Yeah. And with you, if James Gunn were to come to you and say, ask for one recommendation, what's the one thing that you want to see out of James Gunn's Superman?
Balance. Take the type of balance that you did with Guardians 3, with the emotion, the humor when necessary, the overall feeling of hope, the knowledge that you have, and have that balance. If he balances it out, because Guardians 3 to me is my favorite out of those three films. I really like the first one a lot, but I like the third one. I thought he just did such a good balance, and I think that's what Superman needs, because I like the idea that he's going and diving into like a comic kind of accurate Superman, which and blending it into a lot of the newer kind of Superman comics and things that haven't really seen yet pop on screen, because it is going to introduce this DCU, but it has to really focus on the relationships that Clark has. It's got and not only with Lois, the obvious one, but his colleagues at the Daily Planet, Lex Luthor and his nemesis, his parents. Like you've got to invest in these characters, and you've got to care more so than the spectacle, right? Yeah. That's what I hope for. I mean, I was just talking about like Sinners. Sinners could have just been a vampire movie. Yeah. It could have just been a vampire movie, but because of what Ryan Coogler does as a director and a storyteller, he made you care about Smoke and Stack, the twins, so much, and lead up to knowing so much about them, that by the time you get to all the vampire stuff and everything, you're so invested because you're invested in them. And that's what I want to be invested in. I want to be invested in this new version of Clark, this new actor that I don't know and I want to learn about. I want to see a new Lois Lane. I want to see these new things, and I want to see Glenn's flair and style combined with it.
I agree. And I love the tone. I love the cast, but it does. The only reason I'm a little bit on edge is I remember having not so much with the balance necessarily, but having a lot of these similar vibes from the Man of Steel promotion, and thinking, that had amazing trailers and a great cast. And I find the kind of post-mortem of the Snyderverse to be very interesting, because there's so many different perspectives about why it went sideways. And in your mind, was it more so, and obviously money speaks, right? But financially they started to fall apart. What was the bigger contributing factors to why audiences didn't connect with that universe? Do you think it was simply the quality of the movies themselves, or do you think it was in a lot of ways, especially with Superman, the lack of accuracy in regards to the adaptation?
No, I don't, because I think people always talk about that. I mean, Superman, Man of Steel didn't. You got to remember that when that movie came out, I think it was 2013.
Yeah.
When that movie came out, and it did, I think it did anywhere between like, I think final numbers was like 650.
It did really well. Yeah.
It did really well. But the thing was, if you were back then, the internet told you differently, because these other movies, it was when Marvel was really starting to come into play. And even I think Thor Dark World was the movie, and that movie was crushing as far as box office went, and these other things were, and the numbers, and it wasn't comparing to Marvel. So people were like, oh, well, it's a failure. And it wasn't. And I also think this is a lot of times you can, when they blame the studio, you go, come on, you can't just blame the studio on that one. I give a lot of blame to the studio at that time, because the powers that be at Warner Brothers were trying to catch Marvel, and they weren't trying to build their own thing. And that hurt them, because if they would have let those movies marinate, if they would have let Man of Steel marinate and give it a sequel, and if you wanted to really catch Marvel, and instead of trying to go and make Avengers with Justice League, you should have followed their plan then, and you should have went Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Man of Steel 2, Batman 2, and then have them meet together, and then and build on it. And I still say this for now, the big three, they did not let that work the way that they should have. The powers that be did not trust in the filmmakers. They did not trust in everything that they were doing. And they started throwing everything against the wall, hoping to catch those big moments. Like, wait a minute, how come our movies aren't doing what Marvel's did? And then they hit $1 billion with Aquaman. Like, see, we can do it. Let's just and they were just throwing spaghetti against the wall. And I blame it on the powers that be, honestly, because even the whole debacle, what they did with Zack Snyder, and then they replaced him with Joss Whedon when the whole tragedy happened and everything too, and then that whole thing. So it was, the powers that be. I'm gonna blame Warner Brothers for that.
I would agree. I think the fact that in the second film of your big, franchise, intertwining storylines, you did that. And I mean, I think that's kind of speaks to the mistake being made right there, is that, you look at what Marvel did, they waited 11 years essentially to kill off one of their major characters. Right. You mentioned the Batman there for a second, and this is something that I loved Matt Reeves' The Batman. I think it's one of the best movies of the last several years. I think it's fantastic. I love that universe. I love the Penguin, and I'm hearing differing reports. I'm not concerned about the Batman 2 being good. I'm a little bit concerned about it being made. Are those concerns legitimate or no?
Yes, they are definitely legitimate. Of course they are, because there's a lot of the problem is you just don't know who to believe, right? Because if you listen to James Gunn, he's like, look, we're just waiting on Matt Reeves. We're waiting for this script, and we'll see what's going on with the script, and we're still going forward with it. And then you hear like Andy Serkis has read a script. So if Andy Serkis read the script, why does James Gunn have the script?
Yeah.
Or maybe that wasn't indeed the case. Maybe he's read pages. Maybe maybe it wasn't a full script. We don't really know. And then it's a matter of the business side. What you could say is, all right, well, Warner Brothers might just be looking and saying, wait, we're not making any decisions on this right now because we don't know how Superman's going to do, because it won't. But if Superman bombs, they're going to run to Matt Reeves and say, hey, we need you to make this before we wind up selling Warner Brothers to Apple. Because that's what's going to wind up happening.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is what could essentially happen is, because people, if they don't realize, they don't understand what's going to happen, as I mentioned, the big three, we already know that James Gunn said he's working on a Wonder Woman. There's going to be a Wonder Woman movie that they're already working on. Mm-hmm. So that would also mean if you're going to do Wonder Woman, then you're going to do Batman, because you want to get the three of those characters together. Now, I have different opinions with people. I think regular audience members who are not movie diehards that just go to the movies here and there are going to be confused if you have two Batmans running around the same time frame.
I would agree.
So like, and I get the pushback all the time. Like, no, they'd be fine. They'd understand. I'm like, no, you would understand because you understand. You pay attention to the news. If people don't understand the news, like, oh, so if Pattinson has another Batman right around the same time that they're doing their Wonder Woman movie, like, oh, so he's going to show up at Superman. Well, no, because this actually, and it very well might be the case. It's exactly what happens because they want it. Because like what you just said, it was a very well received movie, and they want to see it continue. But the question is, how much time before it comes out too? We're looking at maybe 5 years in between from when the first one to the second one comes out. Will people still care? The hardcore say yes, but if you're Warner Brothers, do you put the money in for it, or you just go all in on James Gunn's new Batman?
Right, and that's I'm all for giving a director or a writer as much time as possible.
Yeah.
But I also think with a character like Batman, I mean, when Pattinson was brought on to play Bruce Wayne, the idea was this is a younger Batman. He's gonna be he's gonna be 40 when the next Batman comes out, and like he can play it younger. It's fine. He's a brilliant actor. But I do think that it's just the way the timeline adds up scares me, because I think that Joker, the first one, and the Batman were these two middle children in this kind of weird universe where they came out at a time where that universe was failing DC, and it was this breath of fresh air. Now, assuming Superman is a success, which I assume it will be, now they're kind of ascending again, and you're kind of left with this scraggler that is the Batman universe. As brilliant as this, I think it's one of the best looking just movie period I've seen in the last 10 years. I love just the look of that film. Want to switch to Marvel real quick, because I think that they're in a delicate, but after Thunderbolts, more optimistic position. I really enjoyed Thunderbolts a lot. I was happy with it. And as weird as it sounds, I was happy to hear Doomsday being pushed back, just because I think that's been an issue that Marvel has had is the rushingness of these projects, especially as it pertains to the VFX. But you know, they're putting all their eggs in the next Avengers basket, which makes sense. When you look at the top 10 highest grossing movies, 4 of them are Avengers films, you know, all time. But my question is, what happens to Marvel? What do they pivot to if Doomsday doesn't succeed?
If Doomsday doesn't succeed?
Yeah, or to the level that they expect it to. Like, because I think they're expecting a $2 billion movie.
It's got to be.
Yeah. What if it does $1.5 billion? I mean,
right. I mean, that's the problem when you're throwing these kind of budgets around. I think that you go back to Thunderbolts, right? Because Thunderbolts, you and I both agree, good movie.
Yeah.
Lost them a lot of money. Didn't do well.
I know that's a downside.
So that's the downside, right? Because it's but there's a lot of different reasons. It doesn't have the Avengers IP to it. It doesn't have a recognizable name. There's a lot of different variables going into that to why it didn't get people into the theater. I think it's going to find life digitally. I think once it comes out, I think it'll life first. I think people are going to find it. Oh, it's a good movie. I should have seen this in the theater. But Doomsday is that's everything right now for them. I guess the answer to your question is, if that doesn't do well, you just got to stay the course. Basically, you've got to. I think because they had some announcement that in 2028 there's supposed to be 4 Marvel films coming out. We covered that on the show today. I think one of those movies will move, but I think that if that movie bombs, Doomsday, you've just got to get rid of all the other things, whether it's the other movies that were connected to the old universe, and just go all in on X-Men.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the question about it not doing, it'll do very well. It's relative to the insanely high expectations, and the budget and everything.
Right.
Yeah, and I also think that Thunderbolts, as good as it was, I think Thunderbolts doing well was a direct result of Marvel fatigue. Like, I think Thunderbolts didn't do great because people were disappointed by previous products that came before it. I think that. Timeline wise, I don't know how it adds up. They might have been smart to have Thunderbolts before Cap 4. I think Cap 4 disappointed a lot of people.
I think it added to it. I don't think that was I don't think it was the defining reason why. But I agree with you that I think that it's one of the. You look at Captain America if you compare it to like Thunderbolts, one of the reasons that I think it also did well is because it's called Captain America. People know that name. And we were just talking before about the regular, just average person who doesn't pay attention to this stuff. You ask them what Captain America is, they go, "Oh, Captain America. I know the name." And then, but if you do Thunderbolts, they're like, "Well, what's that?" It's a Marvel movie. Another superhero movie. I'm good, But then Avengers has a name. Fantastic Four has a name. So that's what they need right now, because they're not in that glory spot anymore where they can go, "Oh, we have this crazy movie called Guardians of the Galaxy that no one knows, but it's Marvel." They can't do that anymore. And so I think that's what they're ultimately going to have to figure out.
That's a good point, because they can't afford the heat checks. Because there was a time where, no one thought an Ant-Man movie was really possible. And then you kind of put it right in the middle of phase 2 when they were rolling, and it's like, it worked. Yeah. Do you view Robert Downey coming back as how do I phrase this? Is it
desperate?
Does it? Well, that was going to be, but yeah, that was good. I feel like that was too cliche of a question, but so it's going to be. Do you think it says more about where Robert Downey Jr. is at right now, or where Marvel is at right
now? You mean as far as why he would do it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a mixture of all of it, right? But to answer the question, that the cliche question is that I don't believe it's desperate yet, because I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the vision, and depending on how they incorporate that with the Tony Stark of it all, could be brilliant if they do it the right way. What we can't do is we can't have a sneaker wearing, sunglass wearing Doom with wisecracking thing. We can't have Tony Stark as Doom.
Yeah,
we've got to have Victor Von Doom as that menacing, evil dude that he is. And I think that Downey's got the chops to pull that off, and that would be a great magic trick if he's able to do it.
Yeah.
So, look, it's one of those things also, is that Downey's made more than enough money with all the Avengers movies, and what a great career in general that he's had, right? But what do rich people like to do? They like to get more rich.
Yeah.
So if he's like, "Look, I got a chance now. They want me to come back and make this and probably have points in the movie. And why wouldn't he do it?" So I don't know if it's a desperation thing. It's a smart business. And then for them, getting the Russos and everything back, it's like it's comfortable, it's familiar, it's safe. But it could be the thing that they need right now.
Yeah. I'm only intrigued by it just because Robert Downey Jr. is a brilliant fucking actor. So I see him in a movie, I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, yeah, it's a bit strange. Last one, and it is Star Wars related, because I know you've done a ton of Star Wars stuff, but I'm 30, like I said. So I am a part of that age that grew up with the prequels as a kid, and then went through that period where it was very fun to hate them. And now I've just admitted, and a lot of it's nostalgia. I saw them when I was 10. I've just come around to being like, yeah, you know what, I like them. And even Sith, I think legitimately is quite good. I saw it with my producer for the 20th anniversary re-release.
That's fun.
But I find the evolution of how people feel about those movies very fascinating. Has your perspective or stance changed on them since their respective release dates, or have you maintained kind of consistency with your opinions?
No, they've changed. And I've told this story kind of a few times. My my now 13-year-old, I think she was probably like 8 or 9, and we maybe 8. We watched. She might have been younger than that, but around that area, we were watching the prequels, and I was watching Phantom Menace with her. And yeah, she was probably, I'm again just going to the age thing. She was 7 or 8, and she was looking up, and it was that opening scene with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan when they were, getting trapped in by the droids. And I looked over and I saw her, and her eyes got wide as she was looking at it. And I went, "Oh, I get it." And I just kind of watched the whole movie through her eyes. And I was like, "Oh, I get it. Yeah, look, the dialogue, it's not the best. There's a lot of things. The essence of the story itself is really great. There's other things that I still think that they could have done, and other things, but for what they were, and the pure essence of Star Wars is in there. So I found an appreciation for them down the line. And especially when you look at, like, when you combine them to the Clone Wars animated series, if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend it.
Just watched it for the first time a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and it elevates the prequels even more. Yeah.
No, I agree completely. I think that just on a filmmaking level, the fact that any director was given a blank check to do whatever he wanted for 3 movies is something that I'm just fascinated by as a fan of film. And that's what happened with Lucas. Well, look, man, I just on a human level, I appreciate, all the inspiration, all the fun, all the laughs that, you've had over time, and great to see you doing well, but appreciate you coming on the show and talking shop a little bit about movies, and wishing you nothing but the best, man. It means a lot.
I appreciate it. Where in New York are you?
I'm in Michigan. I'm in I'm in Lansing, but so much of our content is Detroit/Michigan sports.
Oh, so you're in New York. Well, clearly, I was going to say, why, if you, whatever place in New York you're in, I was like, why do you have all the Detroit stuff in the back?
I'm Michigan based through and through, man. Okay. So I got this interview was perfect because the Tigers finished the first game of their doubleheader right as the interview was starting. Here. So I got game 2. So appreciate your cordiality, Mr. Harloff. Thank you.
Thanks for talking to me.
That was a lot of fun, man. I really did enjoy that a lot. I felt comfortable. Super nice guy. Love talking movies with him. And I mean, it's a strange thing because I don't do as much movie stuff with my content as I used to. Though I still I review every movie I see when I see it. But the film industry is endlessly fascinating to me, and the process of movie making I think is so unique, and I love movie news and people breaking stuff down like that, and few have done it better than Harloff has in his time. Really, an inspiring story to me of growth and content creation, and somebody who's understood the grind and networked and gotten to know people and built things up through using his personality. Hardworking dude. Really appreciated the candor there, and really appreciated his conversation. So that will do it for today's episode of A Chris and Company. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, get those watch hours up. We're in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Woohoo! You can find us on Twitter at Castellani 2014. And of course, if you want to find all of our content, you can find us on CastellaniContent.com. Shimon. And we're there, getting updated every single day. Lots of content we put out. You can't knock us for consistency, man. We've been keeping the geese flowing. So appreciate all of your kindness, and of course I appreciate Austin Sisler, who continues to do a remarkable job. Keep supporting us, keep spreading the word. We want to get more guests. We want to keep this thing rolling. I really do believe in this product, and I'm going to continue to. And the day I don't know. I'll stop, but I really do like the direction that the show is going in. So thanks for all the support, and thank you again to Kristian Harloff, who continues doing a masterful job. We'll talk to you all again real soon. Have a great rest of your day. Peace and happiness.